We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Like, even in this game, they were never really open. Like, they were making plays. Antonio Brown was making insane catches. Le'Veon Bell made an insane catch, or a couple of them. But they had to be insane catches because they were never actually open.
It's January 2017, Jaguars at Steelers. This is Remember That Game, a podcast about sporting events that take you on a journey and maybe chart the path of the zeitgeist. I'm your host, Thomas Emerick, and my guest is Michelle Magdziuk, co-host of the BallBlast Podcast and researcher for NFL Network, and a Pittsburgh native who was on the banks of the Three Rivers when it all went down.
Yeah, I was not happy. So this was my first season living in Pittsburgh. So I went down towards the stadium during this game, watched it at the Jerome Bettis Grill. So that's a restaurant right across from the stadium. I was very excited all day long, very pumped. And then, they just kind of came out and laid a little egg for at least the first half of the game anyways.
Yeah, so the Steelers 7-point home favorites despite losing 30-9 that season against the Jaguars in Week 5. Were you more bullish than the 7-point spread or less bullish?
I always am negative when it comes to the Steelers. I try to never bet on them because I don't want to lose twice. I don't want to bet against them. And then if they lose, I don't want to lose my money and, be sad that they lost. So I don't remember going into this game thinking, we were going to definitely win. I knew that their defense was very good, but their offense really came out to play in that game. Blake Bortles had a fantastic game, so they definitely took us by surprise. And the Steelers' defense was just so bad.
That season was an odd one for that defense. Pro Football Focus gave them the lowest tackling grade of any team in 2017 or 2016. And their lowest graded players that game, inside linebacker Sean Spence and strong safety Mike Mitchell. The next 2 years in the draft, they go for Terrell Edmunds and Devin Bush at linebacker. How much of a reaction to this game do you feel like the Steelers' draft strategy was in the ensuing years?
Yeah, I wish we didn't take Terrell Edmunds in the first round, but the Devin Bush pick I really liked. I definitely think they focused on getting their defense better, which was definitely necessary. I wish they did that more in Ben's prime. Our offense was so great, and it seemed like we never could put it together. Either we had a dominant defense in the beginning of Ben's career, but not a ton of skill players for him, or, we had all the skill players and a great offense and then a terrible defense. Now we're back to a great defense last year and no offense. So hopefully we can put those two together this year and finally have a well-rounded team.
Yeah, in the divisional round here, Bills had given the Jaguars a bit of a run in an ugly wild card game. Not much expected out of the Jags offense coming out. First drive, flurry of backfield motion, quick hits, screen game, misdirection, getting the Steelers linebackers and safeties all thrown off. You have a Leonard Fournette touchdown on fourth down. Big Ben eventually hits Miles Jack, who kind of eats Vance McDonald's lunch on a crossing route, and Jaguars go in for another score. How shocked were you at 14-0? I was chasing Steelers live lines during the game. I was fully expecting them to come back, but as a Steelers fan, maybe a different emotional, mental reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I was with a couple of friends at this restaurant, this bar, where we're watching the game. So we're all pumped, we're all excited. Like I said, we're right across from the stadium. So the game was in Pittsburgh. The whole city was filled with Steelers fans and at the bar. But we just moved here at this point a couple months before. So we were with newer friends. I kind of had to play it cool. I couldn't be my crazy self watching the game. Mm-hmm. So I was internally very frustrated. I didn't think that's how the game would start. I thought maybe it would be a very slow game with how good the Jags defense was. I thought maybe the Steelers would start slow, but I didn't expect the Jags just to put up points like they did. So once it hit 14-0, I definitely started to get nervous, and, like Bortles was just like throwing it. He was just letting himself, they finally let him play his game, and he had a good game.
Yeah, they got him on the move some. He had a lot of time to throw. Actually hit a couple like key third down passes early on. Eventually, you get to 28 by the half on a fumble return for a touchdown. Yannick Ngakoue forcing the fumble on Big Ben. At that point, I mean, I was chasing Steelers money line. I ended up losing. Were you preparing for a divisional round exit?
Yeah, I was. I'm like I said, I'm pretty negative when I'm watching the Steelers games. I just think the worst, and then hope for the best. I had a feeling they would make a comeback. Once it hit 28, once they scored that fumble recovery, that one really hurt because I thought we were making that comeback. Ben made a lot of errors in that game. Now, I know his stat line looks okay with 500 yards and all those touchdowns and only one interception, but that fumble was a big one, and he could have thrown like 5 interceptions in that game. It was really close to having way more interceptions, but it was like just off the defender's fingertips. It was a rough game for him, for sure.
Ends up with 469. First game, he throws 5 interceptions in week 5. Yeah. Nearly throws 5 interceptions in the playoff game, but does have a little more time, a little less pressure. I think they allowed 22 pressures in week 5. To 17 in this divisional round game. I mean, 30% decrease, not nothing, but they, unlike week 5, they do rally back after hitting Antonio Brown for the first touchdown against A.J. Bouye. Right before the half, Steelers get back in it. It's 28-7, clock's running out. Big Ben finds Martavis Bryant. They go 4 split out, which includes Vance McDonald. And then they also have Martavis Bryant, Juju Smith-Schuster, Antonio Brown all en route. So much to cover. Steelers put Bryant in a foot race against Deshaun Gibson. And that's a situation where having Martavis Bryant is nice. 28-14 at the half. So just like that, the explosiveness of the Steelers offense puts you back in it. Do you feel like this was the most exciting Steelers offense during your time as a Steelers fan?
I did think our most exciting offense was in 2018. That was a fantastic offense. Our defense just couldn't put it together, and then we just went through a weird drought in the end of the year to somehow not make the playoffs. But that's besides the point. This 2017 offense was fun to watch, but it seemed like even in this game, they were never really open. Like, they were making plays. Antonio Brown was making insane catches. Le'Veon Bell made an insane catch, or a couple of them. But they had to be insane catches because they were never actually open. I don't know if it was our offensive scheme or whatnot, or their defense was just so good. But we shouldn't have had to always make those really hard contested catches with this great of talent. I wish our scheme, kind of got them open more. I think it would have helped Ben out a lot as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most amazing games you can find for just incredible catches by different skilled players with great throws from Big Ben in tight coverage. Yep. Like, quite the high. You think the Steelers are out of it, and then early in the third quarter, Le'Veon Bell up the sideline, almost like a one-handed touchdown catch against Telvin Smith. The announcers were saying the Killer Bees. Were you ever into that nickname? There were a lot of bee names involved.
I was never in that nickname, but they, that was like every game they would show the Killer Bees. So it was fun. It was definitely a fun offense to watch. I will say Le'Veon Bell had a pretty bad game on the ground. There was a couple 4th and 1s. He couldn't get it, and he fouled, and I think that's a big part of why they lost as well. The stupid errors with Ben and then Le'Veon Bell not being able to pick up those 4th and 1s really hurt us. It was a very irritating game. There was just a lot of mistakes, even when they almost were about to tie it up after a blocked punt. The refs missed a holding play, and I think if they called that, I do think the Steelers would have went and scored and tie up that game. It could have been a totally different game because 2 plays later, Jacksonville scored again to go up by 2 touchdowns instead of tie the game. I'm not blaming this at all on the refs because the Steelers did not come out to play. Their defense was so bad, and the Jags deserved the win. But I do think that game could have turned out in a million different ways just off of just a couple different plays going a different way.
Yeah, Le'Veon Bell, 4th and 1 in Jacksonville territory. The toss sweep. Jalen Ramsey blows it up. The Steelers offense much better rated in pass blocking by Pro Football Focus that year, the number 1 pass blocking offense, whereas Jacksonville had their top graded coverage unit dating back to the 2013 Seahawks.
Wow.
Who also ran that cover 3. Todd Wash was in that Seahawks system with Gus Bradley at one point. Bradley gone from the Jaguars now, but Todd Wash takes over at defensive coordinator for the Jags, and they're still running that cover 3. And yeah, the 2 top graded pass defenses of the last 3 quarters of the decade, both those Seattle-style cover 3s. And, yeah, the Steelers had a tough time getting open. Jaguars go up 35-21 on a Leonard Fournette touchdown rush. And then again, another just kind of a incredibly skilled play at the catch point more than getting people open. Antonio Brown, 43-yard touchdown pass from Ben Roethlisberger. Was Antonio Brown the ultimate clutch Pittsburgh player that you can remember over the past decade or so?
Oh, he's so good. Every time I watch highlights of him or I go back and watch a game, I'm like, oh man, I miss that guy. He was a fantastic wide receiver. There's nothing else you can say about it. No matter how crazy he was, or maybe he hurt the locker room, he was just excellent, and he made those big plays all the time. When we needed him to, he never made a boneheaded play. It's never like, oh, how did you drop that ball? He just always came through for us.
The Steelers still clawing back. They end up putting 42 on the board in this game. But toward the end, you have, again, linebackers getting fooled, safeties getting fooled. Blake Bortles' touchdown to Tommy Bohannon ends up forcing the Steelers into a tough question when they eventually score again. Le'Veon Bell 8-yard rush. Tomlin decides to go for the onside when he has 2 timeouts and the 2-minute warning. A week later, the Patriots would Bortles try to beat them or try to extend the game, and it doesn't work out. Did that change your feelings? And how much was the tilt a week later when you're seeing the ball put in Bortles' hands and the Jaguars losing as opposed to the week prior when Tomlin goes for the onside kick?
We can always look back, and since it didn't work, I wish we did the other thing. I do think he did it because our offense was so much better than our defense, and he had no trust in our defense. Our defense was just so bad. It's pretty likely they probably would have got the first down anyways. I think the Jags were mostly just going for that field goal. They knew if they just got the field goal, they're going to win. In a different situation, they know they have to get the first down. They probably call different plays. I'm sure they get the first down. Yeah. I really don't know if there was a winning situation there. I would have preferred they kicked it off, try to use their 2 timeouts, that 2-minute warning, get the ball back, because the game's over if you don't get the onside kick. Basically, they're already in field goal position, and getting an onside kick is just so improbable.
Jaguars recover the onside, field goal well within Lambeau's range, 45-35. With 0 seconds left, Roethlisberger hits Juju for the lineups. Gets you 45-42. Do you remember your DFS approach that weekend, and did that play factor in at all?
I don't remember, actually. I don't even know if I played too much DFS back then. I got really, I've always played fantasy football for like 15 years now. I've been playing forever, but DFS and playing in a ton of leagues just started up like last year, where I really upped my leagues and playing more DFS. So I don't remember too much then. I just remember being pumped for this game as a fan. I don't think I was too worried about fantasy, and then they just made me cry all day long. That's so sad. I remember being so frustrated during this game. I kept leaving my friends in our group and walking around the bar. Like every time we were on defense, I would like leave them because I wanted to go watch it in like a different area. I thought it would give them better luck, and it just never worked. We just kept that defense was so insanely irritating. I'm very happy. Like, I went back and I watched like this game, like the highlight parts of this game, and I'm very happy they went and fixed their defense. It makes me feel much better about going into this season knowing that they don't just give up huge chunk plays anytime the opposing offense wants it.
Yeah, and one of the bright spots there, you have TJ Watt as a rookie, though he'd make a much bigger leap in his second and third years. Mid that season, they traded for Joe Hayden, who would end up being the Steelers' highest PFF grade player in this game. Was that the most consequential move since the beginning of the 2017 season, that trade for Joe Hayden?
Yeah, Joe Hayden's
positively.
Joe Hayden's been great for us. We definitely needed a true cornerback one. Artie Burns was terrible for us always, but still in 2017. And so I think that Joe Hayden move was fantastic, and he's still killing it for us. Last year, he's one of the best corners in coverage, allowing, I think, like top 5 fewest yards out of any cornerback in the league. So I do love the moves they've been making, and I think since this season, they really realized, okay, we need to focus on our coverage and our tackling, and they've brought in some great guys to do that.
On the offensive side, Ben Roethlisberger, you see some of the peak play of his career during points in 2017. Really, has a rough first outing against Jacksonville. It makes some mistakes in this one, but also some incredible throws to pull him back in it. I think he averaged 300 yards per game after that Jacksonville Week 5 loss in 2017. 2019 lost season with injury. Do you have confidence in him getting back to the level he was at 2017 in 2020?
Yeah, I kind of hope more of like 2018. 2017, he made a lot of boneheaded mistakes. I think in 2018, he was playing it safer. He wasn't trying to fit it in all the time. I think Juju made a big step up, and it helped him out with more spacing. So I'm hoping we see more 2018 Big Ben than 2017. But I do remember after that first Jacksonville game, Ben said maybe he doesn't have it anymore. He was being very dramatic in his press conference, saying he doesn't have it anymore. And I know he came out after that, like you said, and he played much better. But even in this game, we've mentioned there could have been so many mistakes. He just wants to get out of his hands. He doesn't like getting sacked. He wants to get the ball out of his hands, and I think that's a cause for a lot of issues, a lot of fumbles, a lot of interceptions. So I hope he plays it smarter this year. I hope the Steelers offense in general, runs the ball a bit more. He dumps off the ball a bit more to our running backs, and we just play it safe, especially since AB's not there anymore.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Yeah, and how much do you think this team still misses Martavis Bryant?
I think James Washington can be our deep threat. We weren't using him as that in 2018, the last time with Big Ben, but we had AB and Juju, so we were using him like short and intermediate. That's not James Washington's game. We started using him deep last year, especially in the second half of last year, and he really had some really great plays, even with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph. I think Big Ben does love to have that deep threat, but I think that's going to be James Washington this year, so I'm excited to see that connection.
Toward the end of the first half, Steelers were able to stay in the game by getting Martavis in a position where he basically just had to outrun the deep safety and make a play at the back of the end zone. Also, during that period, the Steelers had the best stretch of offensive line continuity of the decade, returning 5 starters pretty regularly. In the first game, Week 5 against Jacksonville, Marcus Gilbert was out, but he was back for the playoff game. They did get a little bit better protection Now this year, Gilbert's gone. Filer replaced Gilbert at right tackle last year, now moving into left guard. Now the Steelers are having to figure out a plan from scratch without a player who's had a ton of experience at one of their starting spots for the first time in a while. How much of a worry of that for you now that Big Ben's coming back from a major injury and, as you said, looking to get the ball out of his hands faster?
Yeah, I am wondering how they're going to replace Ramon Foster now that he's retired. I think that is a pretty big loss. I saw the offensive line kind of go down last year. They didn't look as good. They weren't protecting as well. Their run blocking wasn't great. The offensive line was talking there's just reports out a couple days ago that they said their level just goes up when Ben's in the game. Like, it just makes them better, which probably isn't great for Mason and Duck to hear. They're probably like, why aren't you blocking for me? But they did say, like, their competitive level and just the way they just play better when Ben's on the field. And maybe Ben might be giving them better direction before the snap. He might be helping them out a bit more. So I expect the line to be okay this year. Of course, that could be a struggle filling the shoes of Foster, but I'm sure they'll figure it out. I think a big loss is losing B.J. Finney this free agency, because I thought he could have slid in there, but he left.
Yeah, losing depth over the past few years. Back in 2017, that team had Hubbard fill in at times, and then you're losing Finney too, is another part of that depth. And then you lose Mike Munchak too.
That's a big loss, yeah.
But you still have Mike Tomlin and Keith Butler, who were there in 2017. Did this game impact how you view them, and how has the way you viewed them changed in the years since?
Oh, yeah. So the 2017 and 2018 years definitely made Steelers fans a bit angry at Mike Tomlin and Keith Butler. Like, our offense should look better than it did. It was too inconsistent for how much star power we had there. And like I said, it didn't seem like we were being smart. We weren't getting guys open. And now we hear this offseason they're going to try more movement before the play, which they should have been doing anyways. Like, this is something a lot of teams do, and it seems like the best teams in the league, they have more movement before the snap. So hopefully we see more of that this year. But, fans were upset with Mike Tomlin. We had a great team, and we just weren't getting far, and that was irritating. But then we see last year, and we lose Ben, and we think the season's over. And he did really well. I mean, he did really well coaching that team up, getting them to 8-8, making it a somewhat watchable season instead of us just going, 1-15 or 2-14. He still made it fun. So I think fans respect Mike Tomlin again. And we realize what a good coach he is. He's never had a losing season. That's pretty huge. We need to give him more respect than he's been given before last year. Yeah, and the Steelers have a great run of offense in the mid-2010s. And, Roethlisberger going against a deficit, throwing time, but puts up 469. The following offseason, they ditch Haley for Randy Fichtner. A good 2018 season followed by a disastrous 2019 with some mitigating factors at quarterback. Is the jury still out on Fichtner, or the Steelers fans, are they pretty bullish on that change from Haley to Fichtner? I just feel like we're never going to be happy until we see. I just want to see the offense be more consistent. Like, it's really gets frustrating when 1 week we're on and the next week we're off. Like, I just want a scheme where it seems like players. I keep bringing up just players being open. It gets very frustrating to watch the 49ers, and they're just always open. Or you watch the Ravens, and players are always open. And it seems like Ben always has to make these amazing plays. I wish our scheme was just better. We'll see how it works out here. I think a lot of our play calling comes from Ben. I think he changes it up a lot. He has a lot of freedom. So you never truly know if it's the coordinator making these calls or if it's Ben changing it up.
Yeah, it seemed like a lot of the power crafting, the play sequencing, of course, audibling, that then went from coordinator to quarterback when they jettisoned Haley. 2015 through 2018, maybe the best stretch of Roethlisberger's career, just from a pure production standpoint. Did this loss in the 2017 divisional, did it sting more than some of the other ones, like maybe the 2015 divisional against Denver? Where was it up there as far as the seasons that got away?
This one really hurt because it felt like Ben was getting older. There was only so long that we were going to be able to pay Bell and AB and Ben. So this one definitely hurt really hard. Like I was pretty upset after this game. Any loss in the playoffs is going to sting, but the 2015 loss to Denver, we didn't have AB. He was out. And I feel like if we even had, Bell was already injured a while before, I think. And then D'Angelo Williams was also injured. And our starting running back was Fitzgerald Toussaint,
right,
who was so incredibly bad. I mean, he averaged, I think, like 3 yards a carry. He fumbled the biggest carry of the game. I mean, I think we only lost because of his fumble. So I think if we even just had D'Angelo Williams there playing, we probably would have won that game. If we had AB, we probably would have won. I mean, we were going with Martavis Bryant as our wide receiver 1. He had a fantastic game, but the rest of our wide receivers, I mean, come on. Like Haywood, Coates, Wheaton, none of them are even in the league really anymore. If they are, they're not playing much. Yeah. So that was a rough game. I don't think any of us were really that upset. We probably didn't expect to win. Denver's offense was so bad, but their defense was fantastic. I don't know. That was just a really boring game, and that was a gross one. But I don't remember being too upset about that loss besides hating Toussaint after that fumble. I was very mad at him.
Maybe hating the Bengals too, taking out AB the week prior.
Yes. That was dirty. And then they were calling him like faking it. They said he faked it, and they would only apologize if he sat out. Like that's probably the root of my hatred for the Bengals. I don't even really hate them because they never beat us, so it doesn't, like, there's nothing to hate. But they were dirty. They were dirty.
That rivalry seemed like by that point it had taken over from the Ravens-Steelers rivalry, just in terms of like, oh crap, this game is getting pretty physically out of control. And that wild card.
He should have won, right? That was the one they ran out of the tunnel thinking they won, and then they got a flag. Yeah, that was an interesting game. I would have been way more upset if we lost to Cincy, obviously, in that game. Once we beat them, I feel like we were probably just emotionally exhausted throughout all that. Perfect was so disgusting throughout that whole game. I'm happy he's no longer in our conference or in our division, I guess.
They lose AB against the Bengals, and then right before that 2015 loss. And then in 2017, a huge loss that also occurs against the Bengals, though in much freak accident fashion, with Ryan Shazier. And so this is a 2017 team that's grappling from losing him earlier that season. How much of a difference do you think Ryan Shazier made, especially just watching this Jaguars-Steelers game?
Yeah, we were definitely missing speed at the linebacker position. We were really hurting. We felt that piece missing until the team drafted Devin Bush. And even as a rookie, Bush was coming along, but we finally got that speed back in that position, which feels good. Shazier was definitely missed. He was fantastic. And he's still making his recovery, and he's coming back. I don't know if he'll ever play again, but at least he can walk and live his life a lot more normal than we would have ever thought. So I'm happy he's looking healthy right now.
Bell did have a nice 20-yard run open the second half, but there's not a ton going. You had Malik Jackson, Calais Campbell, Ngakoue to deal with on the Jaguars line. Great season for Miles Jack there too. Even though James Conner has done a pretty good job, do you miss that Bell trademark running style of that period? Measured as the slowest to the line of scrimmage, but still picking up yards. Do you miss that?
He ran pretty. I really don't miss it. He was very inefficient in 2017. He was already going downhill. He needs an excellent line for it to work for him because he's very patient, but then he also doesn't know when to just go. Sometimes you just got to get the yards. And that was always frustrating with him. So I actually don't miss him. I think everything that he can do, James Conner can do just as well. He's great in the receiving game too. Maybe not as smooth of hands. Bell, a couple plays in this Jaguars games, there was some great catches. And I don't think James Conner makes those same catches as he does. But I do love Conner's power. I love his running style. The thing with Conner is we need a running back that stays healthy. So I think this is the last year he's given to show that his body can stay healthy. I'd say that's what I miss the most. Bell missed some games as well and got injured or got suspended. But it was nice having a running back that when he got hit, he wasn't going to be out. And it seemed like every hit Connor took last year, he missed. So that's my only thing that I miss about a running back with the Steelers.
Did you like the cover of this, or was it more annoying that it was overshadowing a bit the Miracle Minneapolis just hours later, kind of taking the news cycle there with that Case Keenum throw to Stephon Diggs?
It kind of made me forget about the Steelers game a little bit. It was very exciting. I mean, that play was great, and I wasn't rooting for one team over the other. So it just was a really cool play as an NFL fan to get to see that last second, win. So, it made my night a little bit better. I didn't care. I kind of like that it overshadowed it, right? Like, I don't want people talking about how bad the Steelers stunk it up earlier in that day. So it was fine with me. I think hearing about it nonstop now is kind of like, all right, like it was a cool play, but no, that was an awesome play by Diggs and the Vikings in general. Poor Saints, man, they always lose. Being a Saints fan would have to be pretty hard.
Yeah, that has to be rough considering Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, and Le'Veon Bell just like fighting for every catch, forcing AJ Bouye and Jalen Ramsey to give up more yards in their coverage than either of them had in a long time. And they had to work for each of those. And then at the end of the Saints-Vikings game, you have Stephon Diggs jump catch it and be like, oh, no one's behind me.
I totally get you. Yeah, that was a little frustrating. But I think by that point, I probably had so many drinks in me, I was probably over it. Like, so I was just drinking my sorrows away throughout that day, throughout that game. And I honestly don't remember. I didn't know those games were on the same day, so I don't remember being having any thought about those two plays being in general. But I do remember watching the Minneapolis Miracle. It's just so much fun when plays like that happen and it's not versus your team. Like if that play happened against the Steelers, I would be so infuriating. Like that has to just suck really bad. But if you're not a fan of the Saints, it's just pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fun drama for the other 30 fan bases, and then pretty special for Vikings fans. Anything you'd like to promote?
Yeah, so my wife and I, Kate and me, we do a podcast called the BallBlast Podcast. It's a fantasy football podcast. We talk about dynasty leagues, redraft leagues, DFS. We do get into betting. So we kind of hit everything. Right now we're very redraft focused. So just for the 2020 fantasy season, getting you ready for your drafts. But you can find that podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, but specifically iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify. If you can't find us, you can reach me at BallBlastEm on Twitter. I post most of my articles and my information on there. And then we do have a website called BallBlastFootball.com. So we have a bunch of articles and our rankings up on there.
Cool. Thanks for coming on the program.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
This has been another episode of Remember That Game. Please rate, review, subscribe, and check out more episodes.